Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to The Caring View, the online health and social care platform free to access for absolutely everybody, aiming to elevate, educate, and celebrate all things social care. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, tap that bell. Oh my gosh, Mark, we're working on Facebook tonight, which is shocking. Facebook crowd, you are back in the game with The Caring View. Give us a like and a follow on Facebook and on LinkedIn. Go to www.thecaringview.co.uk for all of our amazing episodes, our podcast, which, if you haven't listened to it yet, do go catch up on our DSPT podcast. We have a guest here tonight who pretty much just gave us all the information we need to complete our DSPT. 3 episodes long, really great listen. Go and check that out. I'm Adam Pennell, one of your hosts, and I'm joined by Mark.
Yes. How are you? Good week so far? I mean, it's only Tuesday. It feels like a Thursday.
Feels like next Thursday. That's what it feels like. It doesn't feel like it just feels like 2 weeks have gone and it's only Tuesday. It's mad busy as it always is in social care. No, I'm absolutely fabulous. Thank you very much. And I'm over the moon because if there's any Whovians here, we have new Doctor Who, which is just exciting. It was an incredible weekend of Doctor Who and very progressive as well. I think it's a very, very good show. Anyone who's all around DEI and progressiveness, please go and watch this week's Doctor Who because they show you how to do it proper. It was incredible. We are joined tonight by some fabulous guests, and I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves first before we get started. So I'm going to start with Jack.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jack White, project lead of architecture, the digital software for social care, and the managing director of White's Training. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Jack. And a huge thank you again. Jack was one of our sponsors for the Care Show this year, helped us provide all of our free resources and our time being at that show to provide these events that we can do for absolutely everybody. So huge thank you, Jack, for your support on that. Sonia, everyone knows Sonia. Sonia's like our resident HR, but come on, Sonia, who are you?
Good evening, everyone. My name's Sonia Rye. I'm founder and director of Nectar HR. We are a HR consultancy service and we love supporting clients in health and social care.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sonia. Sonia's also on our supply list on our website, so do go check them out. Michelle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Corrigan. I'm the Programme Director for Better Security, Better Care, which is the national government-sponsored programme for increasing data and cybersecurity within adult social care specifically. So brilliant. I'm obsessed with the DSPT.
Oh, of course. And you're going to, and you know, you're my godsend when it comes to the DSPT. Before we get started, I just want to ask everyone who is watching and listening tonight, cats, dogs, or no pets? Or if you're one of those weird people that love hamsters, pop them in the comments. I'd love to know what sort of pets you've got going on at home. We had a really nice discussion in the green room before we got going. And it'd just be great to see what everyone's preferred pet, pooch, pussy, can I say that, is. I'd love to know what's going on. So tonight, we are talking around the takeover of the human race by AI, by computers, by digital tech, and what the ramifications of this are going to be for social care. Now, I want to preface this with the understanding. So we've got Jack, you're joining us from digital training, very much heavily involved in creation of digital tech. Michelle, again, hugely knowledgeable when it comes to the use of AI, our data protection and our security side of things. And Sonia, you are keeping our jobs safe. You are here to tell us what it is that we need to do. With the announcement in the autumn statement of £11.44 an hour, I think it is, for national living wage starting next year, next April, and £12 being the real living wage, with many councils offering out real living wage contracts so that providers pay a real living wage to be able to get an elevated care rate coming in from those councils. How concerned, and I need to know this, how concerned do we need to be now for jobs moving forward? So when we think of jobs in social care, I'm not just thinking those delivering frontline care, but our admin, our HR, our marketing people. And I bring this up because I reference a Marvel show which came out earlier this year on the Disney Plus channel, and it was the first one to use a fully AI-generated intro. So they used AI to generate all of the intro for the TV show, which sounds, quite fancy using this new technology, but it comes through the unionization of VFX artists within Disney themselves. Overworked, underpaid, not getting the sort of right resources, trying to trim down the fat. How concerned do we need to be about that now in social care? So that's my opening question for everyone tonight. But I first want to ask, what the hell is AI? Who can help us?
Go on, then I'll chime in here. So artificial intelligence in itself is a computer-based program that has the ability to learn and understand and interpret data and present that in a tangible format or automate tasks. So artificial intelligence is an up-and-coming thing. It's been around for a few years, but it's getting more prominent. You've all heard of platforms such as ChatGPT. A lot of organizations are using that for their marketing and stuff now. So it's starting to take hold. And essentially, it's just a smart way of bringing data together, in layman's terms. So that's pretty much an understanding, really. Sorry.
No, I was going to say I need AI to automatically unmute my microphone thing for me. You'd think AI would have developed something along the lines of that for like Zoom and Teams to watch your lips, and as soon as they open, unmute them for you. That's what I want AI to be doing. I think that was a really good explanation. Thank you, Jack. Sorry, Mark.
No, that's okay. Listening to you there about Zoom, I use Teams at work, but the last time I jumped on a Zoom call, it did give me the option to ask the host to use AI. And I pressed it, the host didn't do anything, which was very sad for me because I was really excited to see what it would do. But I don't know whether any of you guys use Zoom day to day, whether you know about it on Zoom or not.
No, unfortunately, I don't use Zoom.
I don't know much in the background. But yeah, no. I love AI. I think, well, it takes away the need to think, doesn't it? No, I think it's really good in terms of if you've got a team of managers that might not necessarily know how to word something, they might be able to put the basics together. You can input it and you can ask it to make it more professional or more casual, depending on kind of the style you want. Sonia, I want to come to you because I'm conscious there'll be a lot of managers out there using ChatGPT or Bard, and I saw Bing has gone live, was it last week, this week, with it, which will be interesting to see whether it overtakes Google now that obviously the search function's AI. What pitfalls do providers need to be mindful of just with using those kind of simple, everyday things that we're all kind of utilising now?
I think providers need to be asking themselves the question about, do we want people to be using this in their role? I think it's as simple as that. And then if the answer is no, fine. But then that needs to be communicated out to people and they need to understand the expectations around not using certain types of AI in the workplace, what they don't want them to use and why not. And I think there's a bigger scope in terms of, disciplinary procedures and things like that being updated. If they do want people to use AI, then how much do they want them to use it and what kinds of AI? So, we will be happy with you using ChatGPT for X, Y, and Z, but nothing else. So they need to think about how they want people to use some of the things that you just talked about, ChatGPT, Bard, but also the remits. And they need to be very clear in the expectations around that. And people need to understand the kind of the boundaries of using AI. So I think as probably next year, maybe the year after, we'll see some interesting employment tribunals about AI and the use of AI with people using it when they're not supposed to be. But I've had a good play around and, tried to get it to do things like, I just wanted to see what it can do, what the functionality is like. Job descriptions, writing policies, those kind of things. I'm going to be honest with you, they're not great. It's quite samey. There's a lot of repetition. It's heavily used in America versus here. So a lot of the kind of content that it produces is based on more like American style Americanisms. And so I think if you wanted a basic guideline of asking it a question and it giving you some answers, perhaps, but I don't think it should be used for anything deeper than that from a HR perspective at the moment, not the ChatGPTs and Bards, that kind of thing.
I find that really interesting because Mark and I were like kids in a candy shop when we first discovered ChatGPT. It was like, what can it do for us now? And I must admit, the only thing I use ChatGPT for now is to correct my Excel formulas. When I know my formula is working perfectly and should work perfectly, and Excel's going, there's an error, I just go into ChatGPT. What is wrong with this formula? and they give me an answer, and it's great. I use it more of a search tool at the moment than I do anything else. Because, Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, that's pretty much what ChatGPT does. It scours the internet for all this information and compiles it into a response.
Yeah. So ChatGPT specifically is a generative AI. What it's doing is taking all of the data available to it and then making a plausible response. And that's the thing that people aren't quite grasping yet, is that generative AI particularly has only really at the moment reached the point of plausibility, which is where the point Sonia makes, you've got to know what you're looking at to know whether that's of any use or not. So you started the episode by saying, is it coming to take our jobs? The answer is no, not yet. But it certainly is going to become a tool that is useful to our jobs. So, the check and the Excel examples, the one that I used when we were at the care show was, if you've got a change in terms and conditions on a contract, which is one that very often gets people into trouble, you can put them both in there and say, can you please highlight where these two contracts are different? Now, that is it just taken, a very manual task that would take me hours, because the minute I start reading the contract, my eyes glaze over. And it gives me just what's there. When you're starting to ask it questions, as Sonia says, more broadly, like, give me a policy on this. I heard a scary one the other week where someone was like, we've been using it to write our care plans. And like the hairs on the back of your neck come up, and you're like, the 16th most used source on ChatGPT is Russian news. Like, talking about what's relevant to us and what we should be using, it's not there yet. It's not built for us, and therefore isn't doing the job. And I'd be interested, Jack, you're building something that's 4K. That's a different thing. When we're talking about using worldwide tools, I would steer clear. But there's definitely a marketplace and opportunities for us in building things that are built for us by us in the sector.
100%. And I'll just follow on from Michelle. So when it comes to AI, we have to understand there's different types. So you've got open source AI, which essentially crawls the internet for generic responses. We'll look at information sources such as Wikipedia. So the information that comes to you from them responses can change on a daily basis, and it's only as good as the information that it can crawl. Whereas you look at products like architecture, which is releasing in a couple of weeks, actually. The AI inside architecture is completely different. So it's designed to work with your preset data and look at your metrics and provide generalized responses and information points and alerts around your specific data itself. So ultimately, you will get accurate responses by looking at the information that you put in. Now, you have to understand any system is only as good as its operator. And, we can't expect artificial intelligence overnight to solve a lot of issues. However, there is a massive place in the market for them. And I believe the global market for automated healthcare data in the next, I think by 2030 is due to be $100 billion US. There's definitely a market in there for automation. And we have to look at some of the common problems that we're plagued with in society, especially when we look at data sharing between the NHS and social care in general. At this moment in time, we have delays in care, delays in treatment, all because we're waiting on snail mail that may not attend, the cost of the taxpayers, of every time these letters are printed. And all of these solutions could help, be resolved by AI in its entirety. And it can help substantially reduce the cost and allow the reinvestment back into human-based resources. And we have to look at the example of where people was looking at supermarkets and self-service checkouts, and there was that ambiguity. Well, I'm not going to work with the machine. You don't employ me. You had all of these different arguments, but ultimately you still have staff working alongside them to make sure that they work to how they're meant to do. And I think we just have to look at artificial intelligence in the workplace and go, we use it in everyday life. If you use an Alexa, Siri, Google, any of these platforms like these home systems, if you will, you are using a form of artificial intelligence. And it's just how we introduce that into the workplace. And as Sonia rightly said, we have to look at the ways in which it processes data. I'm sure Sonia will correct me a lot more on this, but from an HR perspective, we have to inform employees that their data is being processed by AI. Same as with service users, we will have to make service users, people you support, customers, clients, terminology you wish to use. The people you support will have to be made aware that AI decision making may be used as part of their care planning and decision processes. If you use an automated rotoring system that uses artificial intelligence, you should have a policy that tells people that you are using that information for that purpose. And I think with artificial intelligence in the workplace, it's something we should embrace. And I think we have to look at other sectors and how they evolve. And if we want to have a digitalized sector that works the way we wish for it to do, we have to look at the innovative solutions coming to the market.
I think, listening to you all, we're years and years away from Measure of a Man. Measure of a Man was an episode of, I'm feeling my sci-fi oats tonight. It's an episode of Star Trek Next Generation where Data, the android's put on trial. Am I human? Am I a person? Or am I just a machine? I think we're years away from actually requiring Sonia to develop us policies to protect AI rights. But there is definitely an involvement there when it comes down to the development of these AIs. Now, we talk quite heavily and focused around the workplace, how it affects our team, how it affects jobs, how it affects productivity. The one thing we seldom really talk about, though, is how can it impact and benefit the lives of the people we support? Now, is there AI that is out there that exists that actually, if we introduced it to the lives of our residents, say, or the people we support in the community, or however we provide our social care, is there AI out there that we should be going, maybe I should consider using this as a tool, and what are the safety implications?
I can answer that. There's certainly stuff in development. There's some that's coming to the market very soon. So AI has its place, definitely. So with alerting more tech-enabled individuals who receive care who use mobile devices for things like medication prompts, it can also be used as a way of validating the carer when they arrive at a location to ensure that they are who they say they are, to reduce things such as impersonation fraud. There's so many ways it can be used to protect the individual. I mean, at this moment in time with architecture and Jack, we're working on non-emotion face detection and pain detection, as a way to help support individuals who may be non-verbal, as a way of expressing how they may be feeling for discomfort. So there's definitely a place, especially with predictive decline as well, and looking at how people's health is currently being interacted with on a daily basis against previous, should we say, medical case examples from deep research. And then working with that individual and the providers to basically risk score and predict decline on the individual and take preemptive action. There's definitely a purpose for it, and it will definitely benefit the lives of many people.
I think one of the things that is really interesting, is as Jack pointed out earlier, this idea of like health data, our care data is health data largely. The ability to start predicting people's needs and therefore taking more preventative measures is a huge opportunity and incredibly exciting, but rests so heavily on us sharing data well and safely. And I don't think there's a little bit of a risk for me of the horse before the cart, the cart before the horse, cart before the horse. In that we've got these exciting advances, but we don't yet have an information sharing infrastructure that I would say is robust and safe. We don't have a culture of good information governance in a way that comes, from the sector right through to the supplier, to the software suppliers.
See, this is where there's been a difficulty, because obviously in healthcare you have Caldecott guardians, in social care you have data security and protection leads. There's always been seen as two separate sectors with two separate ways of working, although they're closely knit, And what we tend to find is where there's been so many different pots of funds over the past few years to develop localized systems to solve local problems, it's now created a massive integration issue because all of these services don't wish to reinvest. This is where solutions such as building, for instance, architecture, where organizations can connect to share data through, is a way of overcoming that technical feat, because realistically, there has to be more ways of data sharing. You are absolutely correct. There needs to be an agreed standard between social care and healthcare, consulting, private organizations and sector security experts and so forth. Only when we overcome these sort of feats can we start the process of actually beginning digital integration. And it's very difficult when you have different county policies and different ICBs working on different systems and in different contracts. Unfortunately, it will take 10 years to try and find a solution to try and overcome these feats, because it can't be solved with one solution. There's plenty of other providers that will bring innovation and tech to the market as well to help overcome these. And it's all about collaboration and working together. And essentially, in the future, third-party providers may have to look at working together as well to share data between. The same as if you're migrating from Android to Apple. There's got to be ways of working to make it more convenient and safer for the end user and stop the duplication and erroneous data.
Something that popped into my head when we were talking about IG there, probably a question for you, Sonia. So say there's organisations that are utilising, say, ChatGPT right now. They've probably not thought about the IG implications. So obviously, that AI is potentially scraping data behind the scenes that they're not aware of. So patient data that could be then shared wherever on the World Wide Web. Should people, if they're already using Bard or Bing or whatever it is that's powered by AI now, should they be thinking of actually updating their IG and also their data sharing policy and with staff around, actually, we are using ChatGPT. Whilst we're not sharing your data into it, it could be pulling it in the background without us knowing.
Yeah, so you need to, Jack was talking about it earlier, but you need to look at your privacy notices. So you should have, you've got various privacy notices. You should have them for applicants, so people that are applying to you, because you're holding their data. You're holding their application forms or CVs and things like that. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But you might be using some kind of AI around that, but also employees. So every organisation, it's a GDPR requirement that you have a privacy notice for your staff. And that needs to be updated to reflect who and how you're sharing that data. So if you are looking at a new AI system, or maybe you're getting a new HR system, it could be anything, but staff need to know how their data is being shared. Now, there's different kind of reasons for the sharing of that data. Some of it is for some kind of lawful reason, so it's actually to undertake part of the contract of employment. For example, payroll. Let's say you've got an external payroll company. You need to share the data of your staff so that you can process their payroll every month, because you don't do that in-house. But there are other reasons that might not necessarily be contractual. So you need to think about your the kind of the policies and the privacy notices that you've got in place. Even people that are visiting your website and things like that. Again, I'm not like a GDPR expert in other areas, but in terms of kind of employees and applicants, you need to be extremely careful. I did mention when we did the live show, but Amazon actually got caught out by using AI as a selection tool. So when they were having applications coming in, they were using an AI system to essentially sift in the background which applications were kind of coming through, as, for like telephone screening or interviewing or whatever, like next stage. And it was actually discriminatory, because the information that was being fed into it was biased, because it was mainly men that were applying to Amazon. So what happened was, if you were a female applicant, it was actually discriminating against you, and you weren't getting put through as far as a male candidate. So I think they got caught out with that in about late 2019. So a while ago, but not that long ago. So you need to think about, even when you are signing up to certain AI software or using different tools, you really need to think about the information that is going into that system or that software. And it might not just, I don't think that's just a consideration to have right at the start when you're talking to a provider about some AI that some kind of software that you're looking to purchase. I think it's an ongoing, how is it using data? How is it taking, because you just don't know where it's pulling that data from and how it's skewing what the output is then like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So are there any cases that you know of where people have gone to tribunal around AI and companies not having, I worry that we've just opened a complete rabbit hole of people now going to their employers saying, like, I know that my staff in my organisation use ChatGPT, but whether we've got policy, we definitely don't have a policy around it, but it's in some of it, yeah.
So I think we'll see different kinds of cases. We haven't seen any case law, as far as I know, around the use of kind of AI unknowingly. And I think it's going to be very similar to, you know, when we had social media just blow up about 18-ish years ago, wasn't it? When we kind of like Facebook came on the scene. Everyone in HR and employment lawyers and kind of everyone that was thinking on that level was like, what is this? We've now got employees putting all sorts of stuff on this platform called Facebook and putting stuff on Twitter, and we don't know what to do about it. And then we started looking at the case law that was coming out of some of the dismissals around what people had posted or said. And it was very clear the direction that we got from tribunals at that time was that you have to make your expectations very, very clear. You have to set your boundaries, which is why I think all organisations now need to have AI policies in place. So as well as looking at your contracts of employment, as well as updating your privacy notices from a HR perspective for applicants and for employees, you need to have the use of AI policy in place. You need to ask yourself those questions about how you want it to be used, how you're communicating that out. It's probably something that needs to go in a handbook, and it probably should be something that's noted as misconduct or gross misconduct examples in disciplinary procedures, because the argument is and will be, I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to use ChatGPT to do my job. Nobody told me, so I just started using it and I thought it was great and I was using it to do X, Y, and Z, and now it's resulted in some massive. So I think it will snowball, and I think we will see a lot of cases, but not yet. I mean, like I said, these like the Amazon example is more like a case study, and I think there probably will be some cases out there, but I think we'll start seeing a lot more going forward.
And would that advice be the same if you're using, say, a digital system that's got AI built into it, or a communication tool that's got AI? Would you have the same advice there as those using ChatGPT?
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that, again, I think I mentioned this on the live show, was that you really need to be asking the provider a lot of questions around the data that's coming in, because the worry from an employment perspective is that there may be some element of indirect or direct discrimination, but we just didn't know that it was there, and it was kind of underlying with, you know, how it's selecting candidates to move through, or how it's assessing someone's performance, for example, because of the data that's got all that kind of stuff that it runs on in the background. So I think, you know, you need to start making sure that, as well as asking questions about its functionality and what it can do for you and understanding it, however you want to use it in the workplace, you really need to understand, hold on a minute, could this actually, you know, from two aspects here, yes, impact our employees, and could it unknowingly discriminate against them? But also, if we're thinking about it to kind of support the care that we're providing in the sector, is it unknowingly discriminating in some way there as well, with the kind of the prompts and the information that it is the output essentially?
I think there's a real risk with AI that what you start to do is bake the biases in. The more data you feed in, like when you're using a data set of 50,000 data lines and there's a bias in there, when that gets into the hundreds of thousands and into the millions, when you're talking about a global system, those biases become really difficult to reverse. So as Sonia says, when you're talking to a potential supplier, talking to them about what the learning data sets are and what they intend the future learning data sets to be, because they'll have an idea, they'll have a pathway, and that'll give you an idea about whether they are just, you know, kind of baking in some potential problems for you further down the line. Like if we look at the ChatGPT example, because it's the one that we all can kind of speak to, this weekend they've just replaced anyone on their board that wasn't a white man with a white man. It's about to become a lot more biased from that very top line. And I think we will see that kind of filtering into the kind of results it generates, because that's what the culture is going to look like. You have to understand, bringing in any sort of software, but particularly something that is learning, is going to influence the culture of your organization.
Can I comment on this? Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
See, this is where there's no sort of guidance as such on how it should be implemented, and obviously it leaves a lot of people finding their feet, and it can potentially cause these loopholes. I mean, every company that uses AI should have an ethical processing policy. They should do. That should be a standard there. And what we also should be doing is questioning, when is the data checked? How is it checked? How is it assessed? How is it compared for erroneous data? How do we make sure we ensure the quality of the AI processing data? Any AI data set should always be manually checked anyway, at regular intervals. Because obviously, as you say, Michelle, what starts small can eventually have a big ripple. But this is where certain elements like containerization come in, and making sure that the AI is refined to the organization as well. And that's a step that can be taken to help segregate some of the data to help the AI remain in its own focus for each organization and the people it supports. And I mean, obviously, those that are just venturing into the realms of AI have probably got thousands of questions, and obviously this is years and years of learning and development through multiple sectors and how they process data as well. And we shouldn't be scared to reach out to other sectors that have integrated artificial intelligence into common ways of working. It's used in many purposes, such as anti-fraud detection, money laundering and stuff like that. So when we look at biases, there's obviously got to be some bias in some occasions, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to get triggers for these sort of, but it raises the questions on how we decide that and who dictates the data set and how it should present. And this is where there needs to be some agreed standards nationally on what should be processed, what can't be processed, and how long that this data that's processed should be retained for, and for what's the maximum scope of the purpose. And obviously, this is where, well, I know we say to people, you need to make sure it's agreed in your contracts, but it goes wider than that. And there needs to be a standardized ethical way of working nationally, so all providers can expect a same standard of safety,
I mean, it does surprise me that none of the regulators, throughout the whole of the UK have come forward with anything. I mean, we haven't seen anything. I've not seen anything from any of the care alliances. Sonia, I can see your...
Yeah, I was just going to say that the government have put together a committee very recently to start looking at the impact of AI, but more from a workforce perspective. So kind of understanding what basically, so, we don't have that scaremongering of people feeling that their jobs are at risk, but also how, I guess, some rules and process and guidance and advice around how organizations can use AI. It is top of the list. So when we were just talking, I remembered a kind of a quote by a Labour MP earlier this year at kind of one of their main conferences. And it was just talking about AI is great because it can automate so much, but it can also automate racism and sexism and exploitation, because its direction is essentially determined by those driving it and governing it. So there needs to be some very clear guidance in place. So I think from an employment perspective, there is a committee that's been put together, and I know that the CIPD are part of that. I know that there's a number of unions involved in that. So from a workforce perspective, I think we will see some direction, and I think we need to keep an eye out for that. But generally, overall, I think we need a lot more to, all the stuff that Jack and Michelle have been saying.
No, absolutely. And Michelle, just touching on something you mentioned earlier about the board at ChatGPT, because I also, on my good old TikTok, which I'm sure powers through AI, they were talking about the board have control of every decision that it makes throughout the whole organization, whereas normally you'd have like managers that make a decision that goes up to the board and back down. The board have overall control. So obviously if it's becoming an all-white male board, the decisions are probably going to be all-white male based. Are there any safer models out of all of them that are kind of on the market? Is Google Bard safer than ChatGPT, or is Bing safer? Or
I'm going to say a big fat no. Like, these are all things that can generate a huge amount of revenue for the people on the board. I mean, ChatGPT is a great example because it started off as a not-for-profit and is now not a not-for-profit, or rather, there is a sub-company underneath, and Microsoft own 49% of that. So you just need to be so careful and understand that whatever you are bringing into your organization does what you want it to do in the way that you want it to do. Like, there's a reason most organizations, when social media came in, as Sonia said, just said, no, you can't put anything to do with work on social media. Like, because it was so hard to control and see where it was going to go. I can see certainly those big tools like using ChatGPT for your own work, using Bard, because Bing is going to be powered by ChatGPT because it's Microsoft, obviously, who own that. You have so little control over what happens there. Now, it doesn't access your data, anything other than what you put into it at the moment. But in the terms and conditions, as with all the Netflix contracts and the Disney contracts, it's there that they might. It was the big kickoff about Zoom and Teams because they put in that they might start scraping your meeting data. And they will be very well-crafted contracts, very well-crafted terms and conditions that say we might do this at some point in the future. And you just need to be very mindful of that, I think.
There's other areas we have to consider as well. It's data retention. You know, obviously, if we've got an AI that's constantly learning, if we're retaining data in large volumes across systems, it's constantly going to be scraping. Even if, someone's deceased or let's just say a digital system or provider leaves, there's still going to be some form of historic data, which is going to be forming the basis of that AI's future decision making. Yeah. Obviously, as Michelle was saying, each AI, especially if it's open source, carries some form of risk. One of the safest ways you can ensure an AI is compatible is making sure that you train the data sets that it requires so it works around your need. However, in a world of growing technology, Apple's just introduced the AI that can scan your photos to check for any child indecency. There's AI being used in your devices, and people say it's for a legitimate purpose, but we have to be able to demonstrate that there is a cutoff with the data that we will collect and for how long we will collect it for. And it's a very difficult area at the moment because it's an emerging market. It seems to be getting such traction across multiple industries. Each industry has its own variations of what it deems acceptable, and it's a very difficult area. And I wouldn't want to be in Sonia's shoes over the next couple of years.
Well, with you just saying that then, Jack, though, and all this talk around bias and making sure that it's reflective, this is really a societal issue before it's an AI issue, isn't it? And actually, as a society, we've become so biased in what we can and can't say, can and can't do. It's a minefield. We had a slight conversation off air before we came on around the complexities of what you can say now, especially if you're a person in a position of fame or celebrity, and rightly or wrongly, people have the ability to air their views. If there's no hate or intention of hate there, then for me, people are allowed individual opinions. But actually, how do we train an AI to understand that? How do we train an AI to understand that in our private lives we're allowed to, without hurting people, have our own beliefs and opinions? And how does the bias of an AI overcome that to understand individual personality? And that's where things get really complex. You're talking around scanning images for childhood indecency, and totally get that if it's being shared online. But if you're a parent wanting to take a photo of your child running around the garden, it's 30 degrees outside and they want to take the nappy off, you should be allowed to take photos of them if it's going to be used as a memory. But then that gets us into the whole societal what's right, what's wrong, and who is to decide what's right and what's wrong. And it's definitely not a board of white men. It's not a board of full, individual races. It's got to be a complex, completely diverse, representative of society as a whole. And this is where AI is moving so fast that I do get those concerns that actually we're breeding it to understand the ideas of potentially the right wing, depending on who we've got in power, and using it to decide on that. I mean, look at Elon Musk. How he is still in a position is beyond me, because that guy has got no filter. That guy has got no filter. Will go online and say what absolutely ever he wants, and yet is sending things into space. And it's absolutely crazy how unchecked everything goes. And yet, as the masses are using technology, we are constantly observed and monitored and checked upon, and our data is being used to inform things elsewhere. I'm going to rewind all the way back now for people who aren't completely technologically minded. And I want to go back to solutions in social care and what we need to think about it. So we've got things in care homes that we're currently using, Alexas, Googles. There's devices out there now that have AI on them. What do we? And I'm going to use Alexa as an example for now. What things do we need to have in place for those AIs that we use? So for an Alexa or a Google, I mean, my house is run on Google. The government know absolutely everything I do. Lucky them, because they'll be able to hear everything. But do we need to start including those within our privacy policies to say we actually have smart speakers in this building? It may capture your data, Sonia, because everyone has them now.
Yeah, so I think you need to think about what data it's capturing essentially, because it's about data being identifiable and you knowing that it is capture, it can from that data you can identify that it's me, for example. So you might not say my name, but like when we have DSAR requests come in, it's not always Sonia Rye, it might be SR, it might be Son. It just depends. So I think it depends about how identifiable it is. If it is identifiable, yes, it needs to be in your privacy notices. And, Jack made an interesting point earlier about retention. So, we put retention policies together for our clients when we've got a leaver. How long are we keeping data for? There's certain amounts of data that we get rid of quite quickly. There's certain data that we like to keep for about 6 months, just in case some kind of a tribunal claim was ever to come, we've got that data. And then there's certain things that we need to keep from a tax perspective for up to kind of 6 to 8 years. But if we've then got Alexa in the background, how long is that data being stored on there for? And we then need to add that into retention policies, and we also need to update our privacy notices. So most definitely, I think if it's identifiable, we need to be thinking a little bit wider, and it should be in the privacy notice.
Another interjection is they're always listening devices as well. So it might not just be for that individual. We have to think of the environment and the consent of others if they're happy being recorded in their own home. And this is another element from the care provider perspective as well. Essentially, if we're sitting there listening to someone, although we're not listening to it, is it subject to a DOLS? Is it invading their privacy? And these are questions we seriously have to consider. And I mean, this is questions that, well, we pose these questions because no one asks, but these are fundamental things that we have to consider. We expect some form of monitoring in the workplace if we have CCTV, but if you're being listened into, it's a very grey area indeed.
I hate that you just mentioned that. I'm going to have sleepless nights now, Jack. I'm going to be thinking about whether I need to apply for DOLS because I've got Alexas in my corridors. I'm panicking now, Jack. I'm panicking. Michelle, stop me panicking.
I'm not the person to stop anybody panicking when I come in with cyber. I think the other thing is to remember we're coming for Christmas. Well, as a care provider, are you allowing people, I remember one of my friends, they bought a Facebook portal for their grandma a couple of years back, which was great. But she had it in a shared space. Did anybody else consent? And that means that the provider had no control over that device. It didn't belong to the care provider. It belonged to the individual.
You've got drop-in features now. So if it's linked to the same account, you can just access it without the person needing to answer. So we have to think of a safeguarding issue as well. And there's so many elements that providers don't consider. Sorry, Michelle, for interrupting.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I was going to come on to that. I think the technology has very quickly become so ubiquitous that we don't really think of the connotations. And remembering that a care setting is unique in that it is typically a home and a workplace. And the way that you deal with technology in those settings is very different. Your tolerance for what you'll accept in each place is very different. I have Alexas all over this house, but if I went to my workplace and it was covered in them, I'm like, I'm not so happy.
And I think you raise a really important thing there, is that actually, because we're using it every day in our personal lives, we don't necessarily think of the implications you are, Michelle, but the rest of us aren't thinking about it in our workplace either. I'm conscious of time that it's 20 past already. I mean, I don't know where the hour has gone. It's flown by. I just wanted to talk about some of the positives that AI might have. So I know we obviously started touching on it. Jack, I didn't know whether you wanted to talk about some of the things that you're currently working on and what that'll do for the sector long-term, short-term, and then perhaps, the rest of us could think about some of the things that we've seen or heard about the positive impact, whether that's for well-being staff, HR, the people we support.
Yeah, so I can share limited information on this because some's coming out in a little while. Essentially, we've created a system that allows real-time data synchronization between healthcare and social care and real-time communication. And it's currently being adopted at this moment in time, and there's providers that are using it, and the AI is actually saving them significant time. And that's actually allowing them to go back to doing things like hands-on care, speaking to staff, and freeing up there, even if it's a couple of hours over the space of a week. When you've got a larger workforce, them couple of hours per person soon add up, and the financial savings as well as the efficiency savings. I mean, we've all been fed up before when we've had to duplicate and triplicate work or copy it onto different systems, and staff burnout suddenly becomes an issue. The same as we have data issues when people are trying to copy data from one point to another point, So there's definitely loads of pros that we are seeing. With the alerting side, providers in general, I know a few systems have got some basic learning automated side, but the alerting side is significant because care providers can see instantly, for instance, in home care, if someone's not logged in or, if a visit's been missed, whereas historically, we would have needed to wait to audit time to see that, and it's allowing us to capture incidents quickly. It's allowing us to be more reactive and responsive. It's definitely allowing us to have a more forward-thinking vision as well when it comes to planning. When you've got intelligible data in front of you that allows you to plan as a business owner, manager, team leader, that is essential and critical to running your business. I've spoken to individuals who use some forms of software as an end user, such as a person receiving care. And for them, it's great. They can track what's coming. They can see who's coming next. It doesn't leave them asking questions. They can communicate with the care provider directly, so they don't have to worry about finding numbers and, letters and all that. It's definitely a way forward. And I think a lot of providers, once they've done that digital step and they've taken that first leap and, they've got integrated and they're on the road, they don't look back, the vast majority of them. But we have to stress that not every system is right for everyone, and you have to go with software that is suitable for you. One of the biggest things we find is people having compatibility issues. So they'll sign up for a software that might not do what they need it to do for a specific purpose. So instead of saying, oh, it's an incompatibility issue, they say, no, it's digital, we don't like it, it doesn't work, and they get defensive and try and dismiss it. But we're in a sector where we always scream we want change but don't like it when it comes in as well. So we have to obviously anticipate that with an adapting workforce. We're trying to recruit now from all age groups. A lot of individuals that are leaving school and joining social care will be used to some form of adaptive technology, and we need to look at moving away from the old stone and tablet and chisel, and moving into the eras. Otherwise, we'll lose individuals to other sectors.
No, really good points. Michelle, any positives that you...
I know I can sometimes be the voice of doom and gloom, but only because I'm such a big believer that the adoption of digital and the adoption of technology in care can revolutionize the quality of the care and the outcomes for individuals. Like, that's really where my heart is when it comes to tech. I'm not a techie person. I'm interested in it, obviously. You've heard me rattle on today. But, I'm not the nuts and bolts. You could tell me that the unicorn isn't getting on with the gnome inside the system, and I'd be like, that's dreadful. But I know that the outcomes and actually using these things in care settings can really change. And one of the things that we've got over health, which we never have anything over health, we definitely haven't got the money, we haven't got the workforce. What we don't have, though, that they do is this legacy of tech debt, whereby they have these systems that they've had in place for 10 years, some of which are obsolete. And Jack says about systems not talking to one another. We don't have that in social care because our maturity is younger, but it makes us more agile. We are the digital natives of health and care, is the way I like to think of it. So I think there's huge opportunities for us to adopt the things that work for us, depending on our setting. And, we're not adopting them because they're the things to have. We're adopting them because we can see the tangible outcomes, whether it's save time or efficiency, whether it's being able to get insights earlier and therefore intervene sooner, whether it's being able to bring together the information that surrounds a person in health and social care that really builds a picture to make us make better decisions on their behalf or with them.
Thank you very much. And Sonia, last but not least, but I will bring in a question before I come to you, because somebody has shared in the comments about offloading timely admin into your HR department with some clever automation. But yes, anything you've seen, Sonia, or anything you want to add to that comment as well?
Yeah, so I think from a HR perspective, where we're kind of seeing it going, but again, I have to stress it's going to be the right data that's fed into the system, and you have to check it. All the stuff that Jack and Michelle have been saying is, recruitment in terms of kind of, if you've got your requirements for meeting a criteria, an objective criteria to, get moved to like a first telephone stage interview, and you've got 150 applications, the right kind of AI system can help you with sifting and scoring and everything else. But again, you have to make sure it's completely unbiased, which is the hard bit. You can help it with onboarding. So when you've got new starters and you kind of got frequently asked questions or information that we know that they're going to need, you can use AI in that way, rather than someone feeling like, I'm just going to keep bothering my manager if I ask this again and again. Some kind of AI, we've seen systems around that, kind of supporting new starters with them settling in. Performance management. So if you've got everything already mapped out in terms of you're managing a team and you're managing objectives, let's say it's bonus related and everything else, and you're logging that as you're going out, as you're kind of going through the year, when you come to that annual review, you don't have to do a lot of work, because there are systems there that will help you work out how much of those objectives have been met, partially, percentage wise, potentially how much of a bonus that means. And that's something that you can then sit down and talk through with that employee. We're also seeing it kind of supporting on succession planning and kind of career planning for employees. So lots of different ways that it can be used in HR. Yes, it can help automate a lot of the kind of the HR admin. But again, I think, or I would just say, exercise caution with all of the things I've just spoken about, because you still need the right people kind of utilizing, using this AI in the right way and understanding, okay, I'm going to question that because that doesn't look quite right to me, rather than just kind of rolling it out.
No, thank you very much. Adam, is there any AI happening in any of your services?
Not anymore, because I'm going to be playing dolls to everything. It's absolutely scared the crap out of me, this. No, I think for me, and this is always how I've worked, and you know me, Mark, and I always work on ROI, which is, for me, reason, outcome, impact. And what is the impact of what we're going to use? What is the impact on life? What is the impact on positive outcomes? What is the impact for our team? What is that impact that we want to achieve? And until I can understand what that impact is, truly understand what that impact is and what it's going to be, I don't have an outcome yet, and I don't have a reason to use it effectively. And that's how I like to work. I like to work backwards. I don't want to just jump into something and go, this is what we're going to do. And then like 2 months down the line go, oh my God, we're in court because, I don't know, North Korea have all of our data of our care plans. And I don't know how that's happened. What the hell's going on? Elon Musk is like tweeting out care outcomes as he goes along. No, it terrifies me. It really, really does. I think what also scares me is how quick the sector is to, and this is no detriment to people like yourself, Jack, because I know you're doing incredible work, but there's the talks around using AI to, like Michelle said, write care plans, to figure out care outcomes for individuals. And as we've understood today, it is predominantly generative AI that we're using in places. There is no heart and soul there yet. And I don't want to be one of those people who cries Asimov, but it's like, if we've not got the heart and soul in the technology, why would we use that to remove the most important part of our role, which is understanding people, what makes them tick, and how we're going to support them? So I like it. I'm liking it at home. I like that it turns all my Christmas trees on for me when I ask it to, and that when I go to bed, it sets my heating to the right temperature. But again, I've told it to do that, and it understands that. And my heating in my Nest apparently knows when I'm here. I like it in my own house. When it comes to care and to care settings, there's so much that we need to consider that I still don't think people are comfortable just having CCTV because of the ramifications of the data captured there. So no, not at the moment. Potentially for marketing, I'm not too sure, and I don't want to comment on work too much. But it just, I don't know. It's not that it worries me. It worries me that people don't understand it, and it's being used quite a lot. And I think the regulators really need to catch up as quick as possible. I know they're just coming into the 21st century now. Love you, CQC, I promise. But their technology is just catching up with us now. And I feel like they've got a lot of work to do to be able to catch up to the point where they can truly regulate us with confidence around the use of AI, which is why it's wonderful that we've got this miraculous DSPT, because it brings so many thoughts to mind when you go through it. You sit there and go, crumbs. Actually, yeah, how do we do that? And how do we monitor that? And how do we check that? I don't know. I want to sound really positive because I do think it's all really wonderful stuff. I love AI in training. I love eye mapping. I love seeing people's reactions and response times. And if you could get an AI to be used during e-learning to see whether they've looked away from the screen and Googled the answer before they put it into the question at the end, I think that would be brilliant. You know, that's what I want to use AI for in social care at the moment, is around that competency and stuff. But for actual care delivery, I'm uncertain at this moment in time. Mark.
Yeah, I think you've touched on quite a few bits. I just made some notes. I mean, it was interesting you touched on the regulator, but they have said that their new system is powered by AI. But you'd be interested to know whether they've got a policy and an IG around all of that for all the data actually they're going to be having in that AI and what's going to happen to that data potentially.
And not only that, though, Mark, sorry, just touching on that with the regulator, because they are the regulator, they're one of those people that don't need to gain consent to take away care plans and to take away care data. They don't need consent from the individual to be able to access that care data. But they will need consent to put it through AI, if I'm correct, Michelle. Am I correct? That doesn't absolve them from not being able to put it through AI, does it?
No, it doesn't absolve you. You still own that. So I think this is the problem. When you see something shiny in the corner, you go, oh, this is going to solve all my problems. You kind of forget all of your existing obligations and the legislation and the regulation that covers all of your actions. Like, I think there is a real risk. And the point you and Mark are both making is, I call it like optimistic skepticism. Like, I like it. It's going to do good things. Right now, for what I need, maybe not. But I'm going to look at it. And I think that's probably what we've covered tonight. Optimistic skepticism. You know, we know that probably Jack more than anyone knows the opportunities this has. You can't just race ahead and do it because you've got all of the weight of the things you're responsible for, and that we're responsible for more than most think here, that you need to really take with you when you're making these decisions.
No, absolutely. I have wrote an action. I am going to email the CQC after this, and I'll ask them to see if they've got a policy around it and see what they. I mean, whether they reply or not is another question, but I'll see if they do, and I'll share an update. I think when I think about my own organisation, we've just done a pilot with Sentai, which is obviously powered by AI through Alexa. I mean, we're not putting any data in; we're just signposting adults to that service. But with the idea that actually it will be using AI for companionship and preventing loneliness. And it's really early days. We've only got 2 adults that we've referred to them, but it'll be really interesting to see actually at the end of the pilot what the customers, because that's what we call them, say about it and whether it has prevented that kind of isolation and loneliness, because obviously that'll be over the winter period. And some of them obviously won't have family and friends that will be able to visit in bits and pieces. So I think it definitely has huge potential. I think tonight has been really eye-opening. And I think, like Adam, you just spoke about Nest a minute ago, things that potentially we might even have in our workplaces around thermostat. All those little things that we just don't think about that actually in the background are powered by AI. But I do think it's accelerating. So, I mean, it's accelerated so quickly already, but I feel like it's accelerating, super fast. But yeah, I think we're all like trying to struggle to to catch up. But by the time we've caught up and we know about it, it's on to the next thing already. Adam, final thoughts?
No, I was just going to say, and I also think there's an element of, and I think this is the case with everything whenever we advance really, really quickly, is there will come a point, and this is going to be like, I know you've just said optimistic skepticism, Michelle, this is going to be really pessimistic now. And this is probably going to apply to say Sonia, probably more than yourself and Jack, but I think there's going to be a point where we learn from some very big mistakes. And it always happens no matter what. And I just feel like there's something coming where we will all have to sit back and go, shit, why didn't we think about that? What the hell has gone on? How do we learn from this? Winterbourne View, we've got Jimmy Savile, we've got Lucy Letby, we've got Harold Shipman. They're all human elements, which, yes, we can't control, but we have supposedly had processes in place to prevent, and we haven't done, and the ramifications have been huge. This is the first time where really it's a non-human but human influenced element that could really cause some damage. Sonia, I just want to come to you quickly. Do you feel like there's going to have to be something to happen for us to learn from it?
Oh yeah, and I think with any kind of, anyone in HR and employment, we're all looking at this with where is it going to go? Like I said, it's like the social media of kind of like what we were looking at when that first came out, and even that has been trial and error and learning from some serious cases that went to tribunals. Some were fair dismissals and some weren't, and it's about learning. But I think if we were to take the principles of what we generally see, we have to communicate to our teams, to our employees, about what the expectations are. I think we have to be open and transparent, but I think a lot more needs to be taken into consideration, and we need to be asking the right questions of suppliers, around the discriminatory elements of it, which, that there may well be. So we're really kind of bated breath looking at case law around this and seeing what's going to come out of it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It always is. Advancement is always great, and we always learn from mistakes. We know this. Jack, I can't wait to see what your softwares and your programs you create do and benefit with people. Please do come back to us when Architect is live. I'd love to have a look at this. We'd love to feature it on the Caring View. Michelle, I want to ask you one more question, because I've not done this year's DSPT yet, but I have got until mid next year to complete it. I'm going with that, and we're running with that. That's fine. I know there were no question changes to this year's data set for the DSPT, and it was the same as last year. Is AI currently questioned within the DSPT? And if not, will it be coming?
Not directly, but obviously because it's data, it's covered with your data policies. I can't imagine a world where it won't come. We know, certainly in terms of cybercrime, AI-fueled ransomware, for example, is starting to creep, and the cyber experts, the tech guys are struggling to keep up. So I can't imagine that it's not going to appear there. Whether it's next year or whether it's in a couple of years, I don't know. These things tend to, as you pointed out, something big and terrible happens, and then we go, oh, everyone should have that, and then we put it in something like the DSPT.
I'm waiting for the Skynet of social care now. As soon as Arnold Schwarzenegger comes storming into a care home with his AI and Terminator, vibes, it's going to be. I mean, I've got questions running through my brain now about all the other people. I mean, the PAMS quality tool, does that use AI to analyze the data? If it does, have we got policies around? I've got all these questions that I just want to go into work tomorrow and ask all of our third-party stakeholders. Do you use AI? If so, can I have your policy, please? So I can upload it into my systems. Really eye-opening tonight. Thank you.
Just quickly, before I'm conscious of time, but before we close off, just going to drop a survey into the comments from Caroline King, who some people might remember as researcher from King's College, is now at the Institute for Ethics in AI and is working on AI in social care. She's got a an anonymous survey at the moment where they're just seeking views about ChatGPT use in social care. So I'm going to pop that into the comments. But anybody watching, if you could fill that in, obviously that will help inform discussions around social care going forward.
Brilliant. Oh, we say this every single week, Mark, don't we? Where has the time gone? I have no idea. Where is this year gone? I think we've only got 2 shows left now until the end of the year, have we? Am I making that up? Have we got 3?
What have we got? Well, let's have a look. No, I think you are right. I think we've only, I mean, it's nearly Christmas, isn't it? We can't have that long. I haven't got no, I don't have the spreadsheet. We've got too many computers on at once. No, we have got 3. So next week we are covering intimacy in social care, or I'm sure we can say it live on here, sex in social care. We've got one around succession planning, and then we've got a one-off special for Christmas. Although I do have an idea, and I need to link in with Sonia about that. It might not be a Christmas special, it might be something else, but we will confirm.
Talking of Christmas, if you do celebrate Christmas, even if you don't celebrate Christmas, but you partake in the decorating of Christmas, show us your Christmas trees. I've been waiting a month for other people to put their Christmas trees up. I've had 5 Christmas trees up for the last 4 weeks, and I went and bought a real one the other day, so I now have 6. But I want to see your Christmas trees as well. Do share them on social media. I want my social media lit up with Christmas trees. I seldom check it, but I will do if you're putting Christmas trees on. Tag us at The Caring View on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Hashtag The Caring View, hashtag Caring Christmas, whatever you want to do. But I want to see Christmas trees. And then a real small ask. If you've not decorated in your care homes yet, and you are going to be decorating in your care homes, don't just decorate. Get some mince pies, get some sherry, get some non-alcoholic alternatives for people who don't drink alcohol, and make it a party. Get everyone involved. If I lived in a care home and I came home or downstairs one morning and all the decorations had been put up while I wasn't there, I'd be heartbroken, because Christmas is my thing. And I think we need to realize that decorating in care homes is for everybody to be doing. So yeah, give that some thought when we get decorating for Christmas, and do share them on social media. This has been The Caring View. Please do find out more about our guests on our social medias. Jack, I think you're as a supplier on our website too, so go and find out more about White's training. Michelle, all of your links are in your podcast episodes. I'm not going to tell everyone what the links are, because they can go and listen to the podcast and find them themselves. Sonia, Next HR, fabulous as always. Thank you so much for joining us. www.thecaringview.co.uk. Find all of our resources, our supply lists, our podcast episodes, everything, absolutely everything on there, including our new CQC hub, which, again, still not heard from anyone who's gone through the new process. So if you have gone through the new single assessment framework process, if you're one of them lucky 16 or whatever it is providers, get in touch. Let us know. How's it gone on? Let's learn from this together. Do get in touch, and we'd love to do a feature on that as well. Until then, we will see you next week for our third to last episode of 2023, which is incredible. Mark, as always, an absolute powerhouse. For those who don't know, Mark is pretty much single-handedly running The Caring View at the moment. I have become like this useless wart on the side of The Caring View, where I show up on a Tuesday, do the show, and then go to bed, and then just crack on with work again. I'm not used to this busy lifestyle. I will get back to it, and we will do more, but everything you see going on at The Caring View at the moment is pretty much down to Mark. So, Mark, huge thank you for everything you are continuing to do for us.
No, thank you.
Other than that, we will see you next week. Take care and good night.
See you later. Thank you to the three of you.
Bye.
Bye.